Hello and welcome back to Election Time News America. Today is Monday, February 23rd, 2026. We'll be looking over the House contests that are coming up just a bit later this year. And I mean, it's down to about 7 to 8 months now, and campaign season is well underway with the first primaries coming up on March 3rd. Election Time News is your one stop for all things American, Canadian, and Australian elections and politics. Make sure to follow us on our socials to stay up to date on election news as it breaks, updates on changing projections, and regular prediction updates on our website and linked below. Remember, there's never a dull moment in politics. So, the House is generally the most directly nationalized body, and it was made that way intentionally. And so it is also directly affected by the national swings that usually take place each and every cycle nationwide. As you can see here, it's very consistent on which party gains in the midterms, and based on it, you can tell who's in power. And so each and every time, the party that is in power, if they lose seat, this is the party in power. How many seats they have compared to how many they had before. And so there's two exceptions, but other than that, it's pretty consistent in um in how it ends up going usually. And there's only two main exceptions here, right in the middle with very adverse circumstances. But all of the recent cycles since the second Bush term have been consistently against the party in power. And I mean, technically, it wasn't very big in 2022, and also not really in 2014. That was because 2012, the Democrats hadn't really gained back much in the House from their insane losses, where they lost just about everything that they could have possibly lost in 2010. And then 2018 was the first Trump term. If we go back to that House map in 2016, Republicans won the House pretty considerably. They actually lost a few seats, but that was specifically because of how well they did in 2014. But they did flip a few seats, specifically looking down here in places like that vacancy in Florida. Looks like actually Florida changed their map to flip a few seats for the Republicans, and it ended up backfiring, or maybe looks like that gerrymander actually got shut down, and it got to be a little bit more fair. Anyway, but Democrats picked up a few seats. They flipped these two in Nevada, which had gone red. You had Bacon flipping the seat there, which is interesting that it was red in 20. It flipped red in 2014 and went right back. That's weird. Um, Virginia's gerrymander, at least in the South, got shut down a bit as far as that goes. New York changed a bit. New Hampshire's first flipped. So you had a few gains across the country, but really not many for the Democrats. It looks like half of them basically were in Florida. So I don't know why it is doing that right now. It's just the little indicator showing up and it's not going away. But then 2018 came around and the Democrats completely, basically swept the board. They won the House national popular vote by 8.6%, and they flipped 46 seats. That's 41 net. And the every single Democratic incumbent that ran won re-election. Every single one of them. The only seats the Republicans flipped, Minnesota's first, that was Tim Walz's seat. He ran for governor and won in 2018. In Minnesota's 8th, Nolan retired. If we look at these seats, this was redistricting done in Pennsylvania, and those areas were both Republican. And if you see here, the Democrats actually gained net 4 seats in Pennsylvania and ended up going even, which just shows how bad it was in 2016 when the Democrats did lose by 8, but they had that's what that they only had 72% of the seats but 54% of the vote. We look then at, I mean, I think those are legit the only flips. Yep. Minnesota and Pennsylvania are the only flips. And everywhere else in the country, there were 8 more tilt seats. Other than Nebraska's second, all of them were under a point. You could have had a 50-50 Kansas House delegation. You you had 3 seats blue in Iowa, which hadn't happened going back to 2010, and then it lost a seat in 2012, and it ended up being 50-50. 2014, it flipped. 2016, Democrats held on. 2018, it went strong. 2020, Miller Meeks narrowly beat Hart, and now this year, Miller Meeks might end up going down. It's going to be really close, but Democrats straight up won the House vote in Iowa, which Trump had won by 9 points 2 years prior. So quite a few of these are very susceptible to these shifts. Same thing in Montana. Montana and Iowa are similar in that fashion. Eastern Kansas seems to be a little bit that way too. But the main point is that Democrats completely overperformed. Then you look at 2020. Oh, yeah. Suburbs. That makes sense. Democrats did better statewide in the House vote in 2020 than in 2018 in Georgia. That is wild. Mace narrowly flipped it against Cunningham. Spanberger held on. Those 2 seats flipped. Fishback flipped it against Peterson, who only narrowly held on prior. So there's a lot going on here, obviously. Owen's only won by 1, which is insane. Because I think concurrently, Trump won the district by like 25. Van Drew, who actually was elected as a Democrat 2 years prior, flipped parties. Anyway. The Republicans didn't get as strong in 2022. They only gained net 10. Now, some of that might have to do with redistricting, right? It was a redistricting year. For example, North Carolina went from a Republican gerrymander to a fair map, and so Democrats gained net a seat there. If we look at Florida, they actually did gerrymander Florida, so that did gain a few seats for them there. New York was a huge wave as far as that goes, but contests like Alaska, Washington's third, a few of these contests were ridiculously close. Caraveo narrowly won in the 8th. Vasquez flipped the 2nd, which was a gerrymander, but it was still very close, and Harrell almost held on. A lot of these contests could have potentially been won, yet Republicans fell short, mostly due to the backlash against the overturning of Roe v. Wade, especially in a lot of suburban regions. You can see a lot of very strong margins. But of course, you had, Lawler winning too and stuff like that. So it's not all amazing for the Republicans. And the Democrats gained net 2 seats in 2024, the smallest change in House composition in United States history. And so that's where we are today, 220 to 215 in the House. And so here's the map for the safe seats. And this is Democratic seats that were won by at least 10 or more, right? And that includes, for these new states, districts that were won by, in the composite, generally the most modern one that I could find. I forgot to switch this one. And that one's 2020, 2024. All of them now ending in 2024. And so make sure that this is correct for Ohio. Yes. So this is the map. This is the expanded competitive map. 176 are going to go for the Democrats. 124 are going to go for the Republicans. For the Republicans, generally, I only saved districts that were 20 or more because the Democrats are going to do better. And there's also a few districts that were won by like a little bit over 20 that I specifically just wanted to point something out in. But as you can see here, the Democrats are probably going to benefit, and they're also looking at a beneficial national environment, which right now we have at -8.5. And that is mostly due to the current polling and the expected enthusiasm gap, which has continued to grow, especially as the Republicans become the low propensity party. And amongst voters who are almost certain to vote, Democrats are up by almost 15 points. They're up amongst independents. They're up amongst, right? So that's why we're looking at almost a potentially an almost 2018 level environment. and that's going to hurt for the Republicans here across the country as they hope to hold on to a House majority that they only won by 3 seats. If the results in Pennsylvania's 7th, Colorado's 8th, and Iowa's 1st had gone different, then Democrats would have the House, and things would be completely different right now. So they don't have anything to lose. And also, it doesn't help that the redistricting wars are actually almost going against them right now. Right now, Democrats are expected to gain about 2.5 seats in total. And so that challenge has now dropped, and I expect that is now almost certain to pass. Court-mandated redraw was just reaffirmed yesterday. Plans introduced, there's no real case there. This is looking less and less likely that's going to pass in time for the midterms. This one keeps getting shut down. This one, it seems that it doesn't really matter. It's going to be on the ballot. They're going to force it through anyways. Washington, I'm really seeing less and less chance it's going to happen. So here's generally the main. Now we're down to 2 seats, but net 2 seats for the Democrats. That's mostly because Ohio isn't really going to be a huge gain for the Republicans, and Florida isn't as high up as Virginia, but the main loss here is the net in New York that's going to happen here, Virginia being one more than Florida as of right now for the most part. If that ends up catching up, and then it's probably going to end up being, but this is just adding up all the net seats with chance. So, but if you want to see that, you can go to redistricting.electiontimenews.com, and it'll redirect you to a published version of this page where you can see it for yourself. So that's where we're at as we go into this. And we're going to start off with going over the Northeast. And actually, no, I'm going to go in poll closing time. So here we have some polls that are going to be closing, and I'm going to go by state, right? I don't care that some of these close at 7 p.m. Just to make things easy, I'll just go state at a time. Mervyn is going to win this seat by a safe margin. He won it by 8.5 in 2024. It was expected to be relatively competitive. He managed to win it in 2022. The House vote stayed basically the exact same in Indiana, and he did better. Kamala Harris only narrowly won this district up here in the Gary, Indiana area. I believe this is, the 1st. So that's going to be difficult. Yeah, she won it by 0.4%. So obviously, it's not a very blue district. Honestly, if it was a bit more fair, it would be less down here and also include South Bend. But it's a gerrymandered state, so whatever. He is still going to be able to win by a safe margin on this ballot, and so that's probably going to be just an easy, safe seat for the Democrats. I'm probably going to make a search feature to make things easier. But based on this, it says he's going to win by up to 18 points. I don't think it's going to necessarily be that high, but he's going to win by a safe margin nonetheless, maybe closer to about 15. Then we have this suburban seat where Sparks only won by 18 points based on the national environment alone. This is the 5th district. 8.5 points. I don't necessarily think it's going to be that close either, necessarily. It's semi-suburban. If we look what's in the district, you can see you have Marion, Coloma, but you have Muncie and Anderson, which is Madison County here. You have the northern region. You have Hamilton County here, the northern part of Indianapolis. But it doesn't include blue areas like Fort Wayne or, any of these other suburban counties. Like, I don't know, what's the other one up here that's kind of competitive? Tippecanoe County, it doesn't even include that one. So it's going to be probably not necessarily super competitive, but it's probably going to be under a 12-point margin. Things get interesting here if things keep going in this trajectory. Kentucky, 26 points for Barr. The only thing I want to point out here was because the initial drawing of this district, it actually got down to 3.5 points, but McGrath is running for Senate, and it got redrawn to be a little bit more Republican anyways, so it's going to be safe red. Even in this environment, I don't see any shot of the 6th district going blue in Kentucky. 16 points. Barr is retiring, though, so that is going to potentially affect things there. Then we go over to Virginia. There is, in fact, going to be a redistricting done here, and it's almost certain to pass. And so we're going to be going off of this map here, which is the composite 2020-2024 map, which includes Youngkin's win. So they're shifted a little bit, but here this is an 8-point margin, this is an 8-point margin, and this is a 6.2-point margin. Those are going to end up going safe just based on national environment. If we look at the comparison to what this statewide result is, this is for a D plus 6.3. And I expect that statewide in Virginia, based on, wow, they only won by 4. That's actually surprising. It's probably going to be close to like D plus 10. So 6 points, probably actually more than that. So going to shift those enough. This is probably going to end up being a likely district, which is going to de-seat Kiggins. In the 2nd district, it is now, I believe, like a Kamala Harris plus, I don't remember, like a Kamala Harris plus 4 district. They narrowly changed out some of this district here, outer Norfolk, into this district and moved in Chesapeake into the 3rd. The representative here, who is Scott, did give in and allow some of this to be moved. This was a very close district. It was like Harris plus 1.5. So they did change that, which is going to be good for the Democrats now. That was that provision to change the actual ballot measure was snuck into a different bill that is either is going to be in like the next week or has been signed by Governor Spanberger. And the 6th district, this is only a 3.3, I can count, point margin here, but I do think the Democrats are still going to be able to win it by a likely margin. In a blue wave here, we saw what happened, especially in the suburbs in 2018. Current Governor Abigail Spanberger defeated incumbent House rep who won by 15 the previous cycle by 2 points. She won in 2020 by just under 2, and they drew into a safer district. But anyway, this is a suburban region. If we look in here at this region here, we can see that if we give my computer a minute, we can see that not only does it have this region in there, but it also has Harrisonburg. It has, I think, Staunton. Yeah, it has Staunton. It has Charlottesville. It goes down, includes Lynchburg, and it might squeak out to Montgomery, Roanoke. I think it goes down, includes Roanoke, which is right down there. And so, honestly, it's a very suburban district. I'd be surprised if it doesn't shift hard against the Republicans again, just like we saw in 2018. So Democrats are probably going to be able to win this relatively safely. Here we have 2 districts that are probably just going to end up being relatively, whatever. 19 points, shifted 4.3. The national popular vote's going to shift by more than that, so that's going to end up being a likely margin. And then you go down to Mace's district. That's 4 points. That's 7.3. That's still going to end up happening, though. But it's probably narrowly going to be a likely district. And then here you have 16 points. That's probably going to be closer to about an 8-point margin at the end of the night. But unless there's a really good Democratic challenger, or candidate, not a challenger, because Mace is retiring, then I don't know. This is just a note because this is going to be a special election filled almost certainly by some Republican over the next 2 months or so. The general is, I believe, the 10th, I want to say. Then we go down to these 3. These 3 are just about 20 points each. Collins and Carter are retiring, and Allen only won by 20. So just an 8-point shift in the national popular vote would be enough to shift it. This is going to be the 12th congressional district in Georgia, which is up at the top. I do not know why I'm doing that. I'm definitely going to make a search on here. 10.5 points. So obviously his district is probably going to end up being a likely margin. I doubt he's going to be de-seated. Georgia Republicans did a phenomenal job with this gerrymander. It is almost completely impenetrable, which they learned their lesson from 2018, where these looked pretty good. But, I mean, we might. But there's nothing anymore in the suburbs. They're exurbs and rurals. So I really don't even think these are going to break 12 points. I barely think this one's going to break 20. Collins' seat might not, but Carter's almost certainly will, just because there won't be an incumbent there anymore in the 1st district. And so, I mean, right there, 13.9, it only would need a 2-point margin there in order to drop down. If we look at the war rating, 2.4, which means a replacement level Republican would not win by 12. Then we go to Georgia's 10th, and this is Collins' seat. This is going to be then 16-point margin, minus 0.9. So this is probably going to end up being a safe margin at the end of the night, though. But that's really not going to make the Republicans very scared. The more concerning thing is going to be governor if Ossoff can carry a candidate to victory there. Then we go to the 8:30 p.m. poll closing time. This is going to be just really 3 states, and this is West Virginia, which is just going to be completely safe red. Then you go have Ohio and North Carolina, which, yes, all of those are gray intentionally. Ohio, here you have a redraw of the map. It was mandated by the courts because this was instated by the courts in the first place. It was enacted in 2022 and was kept for 2024. This time around, the Republicans tried to push for a gerrymander, and they didn't really get far because the Democrats would have challenged it all the way to the end, and it would have been very not pretty. But here you have incumbents for the Democrats in these 3 districts that are not safe blue. You have long-term incumbent Marcy Kaptur in the 9th, which I believe is still, in fact, the 9th. I think the numbers basically all stayed the same. The first, you have Landsman, and then you have Sykes in the 13th. Sykes is almost certainly going to win by a likely margin at this point. It's going to be pretty easy to pull this off. I did not fill these in because, right, but I have this. Oh, I did this the wrong way. Oh, well. I changed my mind on what order I was going to go in. Because, I mean, it's a 2.8 Democrat seat, and so honestly probably going to be at least a likely margin or so. These are probably going to be about safe. I mean, that one is now safe at this point for the Republicans at this point in time. I made that for the original one, which I think was 2016 to composite 2016 to 2020. But you can see this region is the working class parts that have continued to trend hard against the Democrats. Then we have the 5th district, which is probably also relatively easily going to be safe. Even if Sherrod Brown and Amy Acton run up the numbers in these regions, I doubt these are going to be able to break. Maybe this one because it's flat 20, but it would need an 8-point shift, and I'm not sure that's really what's going to happen here. If you look at the totals, that's R plus 12 statewide, and we had R plus 13, so maybe. Maybe. What happened in 2018? It was R plus 5, so maybe not. But gerrymandering does impact who ends up voting and for what, because based on incumbency, but still, I really don't think that's going to end up happening, so it's probably going to end up being a safe seat. Then we go down to actually, we're going to stay up here for a second here, the 7th district. That's just barely over a 12-point margin. This is probably going to end up being a likely seat in Ohio's 7th district. Then we go down to the Southwest. This is the suburbia region around Cincinnati. First district, again, Landsman. It's a R plus 4.1 district. Trump won it narrowly, but he's going to be able to easily win nonetheless. The 10th district is going to be interesting. That's only a 10-point. That's potentially going to be lean as of right now in the national environment. If the Democrats get a really good candidate and the Republicans hold up someone lax, then that might end up going in their favor. Turner, I think, is going to be running there again in that seat. I mean, that's basically unchanged, except for getting a little bit in this region right here. But other than that, it's more or less the same district. So I bet Turner's going to run, but that's potentially going to end up being relatively competitive based on how the statewide vote goes. You have an 18-point margin and a 10-point margin. The 8th might stay. That's questionable, but the 15th is probably going to go below 12 because you have some of the outer Cincinnati region here. If you see, as we zoom in and turn off that, you can see they have all this western swath of Columbus. And then you go down here, you have Eastern Troy, which is that area. Oh, that's Montgomery, which is in that district, which is why it's so competitive. Dayton. So no, that's I'm completely wrong about that. Okay, Dayton is actually Montgomery County, and so that's why the 10th is so competitive. All right. Well, okay, but still going to be potentially competitive. Depends on how hard that suburban region ends up trending as well. Then we go down to North Carolina, which is potentially going to shatter this is a strong Republican gerrymander, but it might not end up going in their favor. As you can see here already, multiple of these are below 10 points for the Republicans, and all of these are 12. There's not going to be a single race here that is going to be projected to go for the Republicans by more than 12 points. And that is because North Carolina as a whole is trending to the left. And so that one is 15 points. That one's 11. That one only needs a 5-point shift to go lean. This one only needs, that's 12 points. That's a 6-point shift to go lean. That's probably going to end up happening, especially with the suburbs in that region. If you look down at the 5th, that's a 13-point margin. Maybe not so much. That's a 12-point margin. So we're looking at potentially lean margins across almost the entire state here. And so that's definitely going to be a huge, warning sign for the Republicans here. The 14th only being 9 might go even closer. And if I were Edwards, I would be very concerned for my seat. 13.5-point margin. And so, yeah, because of these numbers, they're probably not going to end up being extremely close. Some of these ones that are about 12 points are probably going to end up being a little bit closer. These ones, iffy. But if I were any of these three, Edwards, Rouser, Murphy, I'd be concerned. If we look down at up at North Carolina right here, then we can see obviously that we have a 10-point margin. Oh, because I got rid of it because these two got traded out. 8.8, 7.1, 9.1, 8.8, 3.4 in the 10th. And that's the 10th district. That's this one right here. So that one's concerning. If I look at the 11th district, then we can see a 3.4-point margin for Edwards. I'd be concerned for if I was Edwards. You're looking down at the 7th and the 3rd. Then things aren't necessarily as concerning specifically for their incumbents. Maybe just generally because of good performance, but I think this is also skewed because of how strong they went for Stein. But the first district, R+7, it's Davis, and I think it's honestly going to be a blue enough year that he will be able to hold on. Likely that's probably going to be the same thing there. And again, because of how things went with Stein, I think those are going to be a little bit further. But yeah, at first glance, that should be scary for the Republicans. But this is probably going to be for North Carolina. And then we go down to, 7 p.m., 7:30, because this is 8 p.m. This is the largest poll closing of the night. Then we have, of course, again, as I said, the largest poll closing of the night at 8 p.m. And we're going to start up in the Northeast with Maine. I really don't see this one staying with the Democrats. Jared Golden's retiring. And so because of that, yes, it's going to say it's going to go blue because it assumes that he's going to run again. I don't have a way to toggle off the part. Where is it? Where on earth is Maine? M-E. There's only 2 of them. There they are. Yeah, he'd win by 10, most likely, just based on the fundamentals. But if we look at the war, that's 6, so that'd be R+2, so makes sense. Plus, you do have the very well-known, not Piloquin. Who was it? It was someone very well-known in Maine politics. He was a well-known right-wing populist. Well, before that, I think he's honestly going to struggle even in this district, but as far as struggle goes, that just means only win by 3. So the Republicans are probably going to be able to hold out in the 2nd district, and that's going to be one of their few flips on the map. That isn't, and one of like maybe 3 that's going to be not from redistricting. Then we go to New Hampshire. Goodlander's going to win by a likely margin. At least she might break a safe margin. I'm not 100% sure. Purely based off the fundamentals here, 16 points. So actually, yeah, no, she's going to go safe. But if we do look at the 2nd district, 1.7, it might still end up going safe anyway. If we look what happened in 2018, they're basically the same. Papa's here, who is now running for Senate, only won by 8.6, but it was against Edwards, who I believe is a relatively strong candidate. And yes, that is Caroline Leavitt in the 1st district right there, the current press secretary. But honestly, I think that it might end up going safe, just depends as long as the Democrats don't end up picking someone like ridiculously stupid. If we look at Connecticut's 5th district, this is going to be an easy, safe seat for the Democrats. After 2022, it was expected that it was going to be a potentially competitive district again for Hayes, but it was a rematch, and you know how those go. And also, the Democrats did 4 points better in the popular vote. 58.9, 56, 3.5 or so better. Yeah, he did 6 points better. So this was going to be a competitive seat. Then he won by 7 when nationwide Democrats did worse than expected. So that is easily going to be a hold for the Democrats. And we go down to New Jersey. And I did mean to have that safe red the entire time. Just pretend it was like that the entire time. We go to, this is Mikey Sherrill's district. She obviously retired. That seat is going to be filled on April 16th. And so that seat is easily going to be safe for, I forget who it is. It was the progressive in in yeah, Analila Mejia. I probably butchered that name. But yeah, she's the one who's probably gonna end up filling that seat. And then we go to I forget how to say their name, Nellie Powell. Definitely going to be helped by the fact that Trump's not on the ticket. Trump won this district very narrowly, but he won it. He's not going to be on the ticket this time. So probably going to easily win by a safe margin. Plus, if we look at the entire state's basically a suburb. And so if we saw, except for, over here, this is like rich people. This is very similar to Long Island. If you think about districts that are like random rich people districts, you think about New Jersey's 4th, New York's 2nd specifically. Are the ones that come to mind, at least as far as I think. New Jersey's 5th, right? That's going to easily be over 12 points. Keenan's district is definitely going to be difficult for Republicans to hold on to, 5.4%. He's already faced some issues. I forget exactly what it was. I think it might even have to do with like a primary sort of thing there, but Van Drew apparently is expected to win by about 6 points, so that's probably going to end up being a likely seat. Might end up being lean, depends on how well things go for Democrats down in Cape May. We saw some strong performances in Gloucester County, which is a kind of split between those two. And also down in, of course, Cape May, which is a mini city area, so probably somewhat left trending. Then we have New Jersey 7th District, as I said, and that is going to be probably a lean margin for the Democrats here, probably being able to de-seat him. He flipped that seat after it was redrawn in 2022 to be a bit more favorable to the Republicans. It was this seat right here. Kean actually lost that seat, and here he did not lose the rematch, but it was a redder seat, so it's a bit of an exception. Then we go over to neighboring Pennsylvania, and this is probably going to be pretty bad for the Republicans. If we look here, that's 7.8 points for Deluzio, easily going to win by over 12. If we look at the 3 seats that Republicans won by less than 2 points in 2024, I'd expect them all to flip. Not necessarily by, the large amounts here. If we look at the 1st district, for example, actually you do have, that's, Fitzpatrick's district, that's going to go 10 points to the left, but still will stay. Unless Democrats get a very strong candidate, he actually was allowed to vote no on the big, beautiful bill. And among other things, Harris won his district by about a point. Yeah, he is still able to win. And yep, -1 Cook PVI. So he is still probably going to be able to win, even in this huge environment. He won his seat first in 2018 by 2.5. I wouldn't be surprised if he basically replicates that performance. Then we go to the 10th district. Perry's days are probably numbered. He's held the seat since it was drawn in 2018, and it's been left trending ever since, and continually will. 8th district, R+4 for the 10th. Where's the 8th? That's up here. Pennsylvania's 10th district. We look now 8.8 point margin. It's a competitive district. Money's going to be poured into it. I don't think it's going to break 6 points, but it could be as far as 5 points in an environment like this. Then we look at the 8th and 9th 7th and 8th districts. The 7th is a lot less red than the 8th. So we have 9 and 8, though. Again, it's probably going to be the exact same thing, but we might end up having this depending on how turnout in Allentown goes, which is actually a very large city in Pennsylvania. It depends on how that ends up going there, as well as Northampton County, which is a semi-urban county that's really going to be dependent on how things go. It's a swing county. So that's it for Pennsylvania. Going down south, that's going to be an easy, safe seat for the Democrats in Maryland. That was expected to be a competitive seat, ended up being won by 6. We scroll down to Florida. This one's going to be interesting. Now, this is assuming no redistricting for whatever reason. I don't know. Salazar, yes, 20-point margin, but Hispanic voters have been shifting hard to the Democrats. If you look here, she only won by 14.5 and then 20. That hard of a shift is probably going to go right back. So this is only going to be a likely seat for the Republicans here. They're not going to lose it. But there was a model, I forget who did it, of how far specific House seats would shift if Hispanic voters shifted a certain amount. And I'm basing this off of the Trump approval numbers from The Economist. And so it's been stagnant at minus 17. But if you look down at Hispanic voters, 2024 voters in Florida actually still do like him, but minus 6.7%. If you look down at Hispanic voters, minus 25. So in a region like that, that might really hurt, especially when we saw the Miami mayorship flip by such a hard margin. And so that's why we're also going to be looking for hurting numbers in the rest of the state as white voters in Florida actually slightly trend to the left. Especially compared to the state as a whole, they're actually trending quite a bit to the left, especially up in the northern corridor here, which is really weird. But it kind of makes sense because they only really can go left. They're already so Republican. Then we look at these seats. They're probably all going to end up being safe blue. If we now look at the Hispanic numbers again, 4.8 to 4.9, they basically stayed stagnant as Democrats did way better, which means they trended to the right. If we look up at this red district, currently held by Mast, probably going to end up being a likely margin for the Republicans. Basically, same thing in those two seats. They're going to be a little bit more competitive. I mean, not necessarily sure about the 8th, but just purely based off of the environment as a whole, it might end up getting a little bit more competitive if things stay how they are. If you look at the 8th district, that's 14 points, so it really depends. If you look at the 7th district, which is right there, that's down to a 3-point margin for the Republicans. So that's actually going to get really, really close for Mills, depending on how strong of a candidate the Democrats get. Same sort of story for Lee, which might even get down to like a tilt margin, depending on how things go there. Buchanan, probably only going to win by a likely margin. And then same thing up here for Bean, 14.5 points. That's probably also going to only be a lean margin as well, containing most of northern Jacksonville, probably going to move hard against the Republicans. And Luna in the 13th district is definitely at risk, minus 0.5, but because she's held through so much and it's a right trending state, I'm going to actually give it to her right there. Then we go to Alabama, going to be a safe district for figures in that seat, redistricted because this was declared illegal due to Section 2 of the VRA, and so that was given to the Democrats, won by 9, not really going to be very big of a deal there. And we go to these two districts in Tennessee, probably both going to be likely districts. If you do look at the 5th, though, which is going to be interesting here, Tennessee's 5th district, then 7.3, which is a little bit close to lean, but Afton Bain is not running here, and she'd probably only do better in the 7th anyway, but that'd be a rematch, so, anyway. That's probably going to end up being both just likely districts. If we scroll up to Illinois, then this is going to be a safe seat for the Democrats. Illinois 6th. That was just not a 10-point margin there in the 6th district. And also for Sorensen in the 17th, they're going to be safe. Then we go to Missouri. This is going to be a lean seat for Wagner. And I'm not sure whether or not this gerrymander is going to go through. It was pushed to the ballot, but I don't know if if they're going to let it go through at this point. But anyway, yeah, it's going to be tough. But as of right now, I'm going to give it to a lean seat to Wagner. Oklahoma's 5th is going to be either, depending on whether or not Horn runs, it might end up being a likely seat, but almost certainly not going to go safe. They redrew it after Horn narrowly flipped it in 2018. ran for re-election and lost to Bice in 2020. Did not run in 2022, and then ran and lost by 21.5 in 2024. If it was another rematch, probably wouldn't do very well, but comparatively better than anybody else. Then we go to 830, just going to be a likely district for Arkansas 2nd District, 17 points, just down 5.9. Not necessarily too surprising as far as that goes. Then we go to the 9 p.m. poll closings, and this is going to be the second largest wave of the night going up to New York. We're going to start off with these districts down here and this is, again, going off of no redistricting, even though it was generally reaffirmed yesterday that Maliataka's seat is going to get drawn out and most likely made competitive, which is probably going to end up being picked up by the Democrats. You end up having Gillen and Swozey probably winning by high likely margins, and then you go down to further down, you have LaLota by 10.4% in the New York's. That is going to be I believe, the 1st district. Yep. In the state, and that's going to be very competitive. I mean, if you look at New York's first 0.3 for the Republicans, so it depends on how strong of a candidate the Democrats play here and how they can pick this left trending district up. And then you also look at the Garbarino's district, probably going to be a likely margin, probably not going to end up losing though. You look here at the northern seats. I mean, Mannion's probably going to win by a safe margin, so only 3 points up from where he won in the first place. Riley's probably going to win by a likely margin, potentially getting up to a safe margin if things go his way later that race. And Waller might end up losing this cycle just because of how blue the environment's going to be. That's the 17th district, and if you look at how it is expected to go 3.8%, I don't really think this is going to go more than a tilt margin because Lawler's relatively well liked. Harris won his district, so probably going to be relatively competitive there as far as that goes. Go up to Michigan. This is the outer Detroit seat here. Michigan's 10th. This is working class. This is the Northeast. This is going to be the bit more wealthier working class region. This is John James' seat, but he's retiring, and Trump has been trying to pressure him to go back and run for the seat again, but it's almost too late at this point. And I think he might lose anyway, so he really doesn't want to have to drop out there. Just to potentially go to lose a seat there, which is, again, the 10th seat, 10th district, which could be as far as R+4, but I really don't think that this is now, it's an ancestrally Democratic seat, so I think, honestly, it might come back to the Democrats a little bit. Looking at Michigan's 1st district, this is going to be 11.1 points, narrowly a likely seat. It's not going to get won by the Democrats, but Bergman's probably going to be able to win relatively comfortably here. Scholten's going to easily win by a safe margin here, as well as Rivet. Same sort of thing that we've seen in these others ones that were expected to be competitive, but then completely were not, and were won relatively decisively by the Democrats. Then we have Barrett's district, which is probably going to be very difficult for her to hold on to. 6.4%. I don't think it's going to break lean, though. And then you actually have Huizenga's district, 11.7%. And that's actually going to be a 1.6 point margin for the 4th district. For the Republicans, potentially going to stay lean. Depends on candidate quality. We don't really know who's running, so we can't necessarily get deep and into the nitty gritty as far as how those levels go. It really depends on how these end up continuing to go, but Wyde might end up in some trouble later this year in his district in Wisconsin, the Northeast. This is going to be based off of Green Bay and the surrounding suburbs there. The 8th district, 4.6 points, which is ridiculously close. But I could believe it based on how those suburbs are trending, especially if they shift hard against the Republicans. The 6th district, 22 points for Grothman. I really don't think that it's going to be below 12. It says 12.5. It could be close. Depends on how Ozaukee County moves. Then you look at Wyde's district. This one's going to be interesting. The 1st district in Wisconsin, 0.1 for the Republicans. So Wyde narrowly going to hold on here. If we look at how much Trump won the district by, though, it is a right trending district in general. And so Trump won the district by about 5. So obviously he did worse than Wyde did here, and so that may end up helping him there, but it includes Racine and Kenosha counties, a little bit of southern Milwaukee, but the more southern regions, a little bit into Rock County, which is the southern Madison suburbs, and then just everything in between there. Wyde might narrowly hold on, so the only flip that is going to be there is, in fact, going to be against Van Orden in the 3rd district, 7.5 points. But most likely right now it looks like that Cook is going to run again, so I think this is only going to be a lean seat. It is a very suburban seat, though. It has counties like La Crosse, it has some of the Driftless area, it has Also has Eau Claire. It has the band that we talked about in the video 2 days ago that might end up coming back to the Democrats. It'll be very interesting to see there. Minnesota, the only thing that's going to be happening is these are probably going to drop into a likely margin, so it's really not going to be necessarily anything that's going to be flippable for the Democrats per se. And the Democrats now really only have to win, that is 5 more seats at this point in order to take control of the House, and Republicans are only at 175, so they will have to almost completely sweep everything, and we've only gotten halfway through the competitive seats, so things are not looking good for them. This is actually Hinson's seat. She does relatively well there. It was redrawn. It's a little bit of a redder district now. I believe that Trump won it by not a huge margin, but relatively respectable one. I think it's the 2nd district, if I can check again. Yep. And so, no, that is not at all what I said. Iowa 02. There we go. And Trump won the district by 10. She won the district by 15 and a half. She's the only one that overperformed expectations in Iowa, which is kind of weird, but it's a relatively blue district. It only includes Cedar Rapids, and Waterloo, which is Black Hawk County, and I forget which this one is, but 2 somewhat urban counties. It also includes Dubuque. It depends on how well Rob Sand can end up carrying things from the top of the ticket, but as of right now, it's potentially going to be a lean seat. If we scroll up to Iowa, we can see that it is, in fact, listed as a lean seat narrowly 5.5 points, and that's with incumbency. Hinson not running is going to hurt things even more for the Republicans, but I still wouldn't necessarily put this on the Democrats' top pickup list. Then we also go down to the 3rd and 1st districts. These are prime pickup opportunities for the Democrats. The first 9.9 points against Miller Meeks. She does better in midterm years, though, so I wouldn't necessarily expect this to go over 6 points. And then Sam Nunn's probably going to lose as well in this seat in the 3rd, not by as large of a margin. 6.3 points. It's going to be a relatively competitive seat. Republicans are going to put money into it, so I don't think it's going to go over 6 points, but that would mean that it's going to be 50-50 in Iowa. Then we go over to Nebraska. This is a flood seat here. He only won by 20.2. This is a relatively left-trending district with Osborne on the ticket. He's probably going to win this district again. He won it in 2024 on this same ballot. He won it against, I forget her name, running for Senate. He only lost by 6.7% statewide. So that's definitely going to be an important thing to note. He's probably going to only win by a likely margin, but it's not going to be a pickup opportunity for the Democrats whatsoever. And Don Bacon is retiring in this seat, which is almost perfectly an auto flip for the Democrats, as Kamala Harris won this seat relatively decisively, especially considering how well things had gone previously. But if we look at Nebraska's 2nd, 8.2, and that's even if he ran again. He'd probably be losing by 8 points. So if we then add on this war rating of 1.6, that's 3 points more. That's almost a safe margin in Nebraska's 2nd district. And now we're at 216 for the Democrats. Kansas 2nd district, we're going down now to this one. It was relatively competitive in 2018. The Democrats almost broke it. So then it was redrawn a little bit redder to include some of this red region out over here. 2024, 19 points for Schmidt. It really depends on who ends up running here, but as of right now, it is going to be a likely seat for the Republicans. Then we go down to Texas, and this was a complete redraw, but things may end up completely backfiring because they betted on that Hispanic voters were going to stay with their 2024 numbers. Spoiler, it does not look like that's going to be the case. And so now, not necessarily that's going to get completely shattered, but we're going to be looking at something that looks like the 2018 map. Districts that are much, much closer than they'd hoped for. And yeah, Democrats might break in through a district or two. Culberson won by 12, and then they flipped it. And also up here, you had Sessions winning, and this is Colin Allred. So they redrew it to be a lot safer, and they actually did a great job, but they went a little bit too greedy this cycle. And so now what we're looking at is the potential for more spoiling in these seats. If we look at the 20 to 2024, you can even see some of these are close. But if we go back to when Hispanic voters were a lot bluer, like 2016 to 2020, now this entire South region is so much closer, and so is the 9th district. So if you compile basically what is for the Democrats the best of both worlds, and especially considering how good things are looking for the Senate, which might help things a little bit down ballot. Greg Abbott doing well is going to kind of balance that out a bit, but comparing those, things are probably not going to go well for the Republicans in Texas. The 23rd district, this is Gonzalez district. I do think that he's probably going to hold on, probably by about a lean margin. Quellar is probably going to win, though, probably relatively safely. He wins relatively strongly as is, and this is still a blue district by 5. So he's easily going to win by a safe margin here. I'd say 34th district, barely a red district to begin with. Gonzalez here is, with a Z, not an S, is going to likely win, probably by a likely margin, which means that Democrats will now flip the House of Representatives. Then we look at these just under 20-point seats, the 24th, which includes some of Denton County here, which this is actually where What's-His-Face's district is. He was sworn into the Texas House, I believe, like 3 days ago. Only 15 points. This is potentially going to be even like a lean seat. This is a potential pickup opportunity if Colin Allred wanted to run here somehow. That would be great for the Democrats, but I think instead he's running in he's running in the 33rd. He honestly should run in the 24th. He could flip that. Then we're looking at the 32nd district. This is another one that's potentially going to be relatively interesting. The 32nd being R plus, that's 14. That's going to be another one that's going to be relatively close. It might end up being over 6 points for the Republicans. It really depends on how strong things turn out in the suburbs or the rural regions, right? Like out over here, huge Republican counties. Then we look at the 5th district. This is an R plus 20 district. This is probably going to only narrowly break down below 12. But I'd say probably about 10. It'd probably still be over 10. 6th district. This is just barely over 20, but it includes some of those left trending regions, so it might end up breaking down below 20, but it is still going to be a Republican district. 17th district, same sort of thing going on there. We're looking at an R plus 20 district. That might narrowly get down below that. Then we're also looking at the 10th district. This is another one that was drawn out that way. I mean, it's really just going to be the same thing for also the 27th, which is basically also R plus 20. Look at the 9th district. This one's going to be concerning, though. This is actually a pickup opportunity for the Democrats. It's probably going to be lean. It depends on who they end up picking. This is a Hispanic district right here. If we look, majority Hispanic, 58% Hispanic. This might end up even getting to tilt or even a pickup for the Democrats, but until I see anything further, it's going to be lean. As of right now, the 38th district is almost certainly going to go a bit closer to. It is only a quarter Hispanic, but it's going to be interesting to see how that ends up moving. And then we have these two finally, the 35th district, which is a huge pickup opportunity for the Democrats. It's only R plus 6, left trending as well, I believe. And we can see swing from, let's do between presidents. And wow, look at that. Barely swing at all. Look at compared to the state as a whole, that's a little bit less than the state as a whole. So it's not a huge swing. It's not a huge trend in compared to the state as a whole, but it doesn't show up here, which is annoying. But yeah, it's not huge. The 2nd district left trending, the 27th, the 13th, the 11th, the 31st, the 6th are all left trending. The 9th trended hard to the right, but that makes sense. It could come right back. Same thing for the 28th, for example. So those are all going to be concerning for the Republicans there. But as of right now, it's going to be tilt Republican on our map. 15th district is going to be lean because you have a relatively strong incumbent there. That's going to be De La Cruz district. I don't know who is in that district. Nobody is. Okay, that is concerning. So now with no incumbent, I am actually going to move that it is in fact tilt. So this is Texas, and luckily for Republicans, this is probably about the worst it's going to get. Again, at least in the Rio Grande Valley for now, potentially. Then we go to Colorado. Yes, all of those are in fact gray to start out, and we are going to start off with Crank's district. This is going to be a very left-trending district, and he has now actually gotten a primary challenge that has been endorsed by Donald Trump, which is very risky considering his district is very hard right-trending. If we look at Colorado's 5th district, then Trump won it by 9, and Crank won it by 13. So if Crank goes down, and if we look at this district too, right, this is the 5th, 2.6. He did 5 points better than a replacement level candidate. 8 points. That makes sense, yes. So it's a left-trending district too. Colorado Springs, right? Very left-trending region. Air Force Academy. I wonder if it went for Biden. So this could potentially be very dangerous for the Republicans, especially when Crank is somehow only expected to win by 3.7. I don't think it's going to go that bad, but if his primary challenger wins, then I wouldn't be surprised if it goes below 5. And this is Hurd's district in the 3rd. He only won by 5. That is 5 points for the Democrats. I really don't think it's going to be that harsh. I think the Democrats are going to flip the district though, because again, Colorado is very left trending. It's the most left trending state in the entire country. Wait, I don't think so. No, it's not. Yeah, it is. It's the most left trending state in the entire country, ahead of even Georgia and Kansas and Washington and Alaska. Utah, I've explained it before, but it's messed up because of how heavily weighted the 2008 to 2012 shift is. Um, and so, again, Colorado Herd's actually really in a lot of trouble here, and so is Bobert. Not actually in as much trouble though. The 4th district here, 1.5 points for Bobert, but she could absolutely lose this seat. And then you go to the 8th district. This is with Evans, almost certainly going to lose re-election here in the 8th district. 9 points for the Democrats, which actually I think is going to end up being a likely seat. This is going to be a safe seat for the Democrats in the southern seat in New Mexico. Not only are conservatives, not conservatives, wow, Hispanic shifting back to the left, but Trump won this seat and Vasquez won it against the old incumbent on the same ballot. And also, Hispanic voters are shifting hard again towards the left again. And it's also just going to be a bluer year. Just shift it 10 points to the left in and of itself, and he's going to win by 14. So that's that in a case. Let me go to Arizona. First off, big seat. Probably going to end up going to go below safe margin, not by much, but just barely enough. Probably going to be closer to 10 points. Hamadeh, honestly, is in a lot more trouble again than most people might think in the 8th district. And so Arizona's 8th district here, 2.9 points, still going to be a lean margin for the Republicans, but it's not going to be, anything necessarily easy for the Republicans to hold on to. Crane's district, this is in the 2nd. 1.1 for the Democrats, but I really don't see this one shifting that hard. I mean, this region used to be blue, but it also did include Southern Phoenix. And if we look at Arizona's 2nd, how well Trump did in the district, we can see that he won it by 15. So Crane is actually an underperformer to Trump. And so I'd be surprised if Republicans end up losing this seat, but it's still going to be way closer than they could possibly want it to be. And then Schweikert and Siscomani. Schweikert is retiring to run for, I believe, governor. Yeah, governor. There's no Senate race. And Siscomani is just basically doomed. They're both just going to be the 1st and 6th district in Arizona. Arizona's first 6 points. I don't think it's going to break that, but there's probably going to be a lean margin in the end. And the 6th district, 7 points. Now, it is possible. No, actually, I think Schweikert's district is probably more likely because it is left trending as well. And he's also retiring. So that's going to be a point there. But Siscomani, I think, is running again. I don't remember. I can check. No, I don't. Yes, he is. So flat even PVI though, which is interesting. But war rating of actually -6, which yeah. Okay, so yeah, basically doomed as far as that goes, and Cook PVI of only 1 is not gonna save you either. So then we are going to the 10 p.m. poll closing time, and wow, this is way longer than I thought it would be, by a lot. So, let me go to Montana's 1st district. Zinke's seat is actually really going to be in a lot of trouble here. Montana's 1st district is probably going to be relatively susceptible to trends. Montana as a whole generally is, just like Iowa. 2.4 for the Democrats. I see this generally as a tilt seat for now. It depends on who ends up running here. If it ends up being Trinnell again, then it actually might be a Zinke seat. It's going to be close, but might end up being a Zinke seat. Utah, note the redistricting, which was reaffirmed yesterday. And then we have Nevada. Yes, I dropped Nevada 2nd, which is now going to be likely because Amodi is retiring in that seat, and so that is going to be a huge blow to the Democrats. Oops, that is the wrong state. And Nevada's 2nd. retiring. So now we probably are just going to be looking at the fact that it's an R+7 district and 5 point. Pure PVI plus war 5.5. There, the war is 0. I think that's kind of messed up because, oh yeah, no Democrat win here, so I don't think they put one in. But these are easily going to be safe seats just based on how the margin was in 2024, and we might have some Hispanic movement back, especially in Las Vegas, where the economy has been doing very poorly, and the number one issue right now is the economy. It's been dropping a bit, making way for civil rights and immigration, as well as national security, mostly probably in the wake of ICE activity and some concerns with that. But Lee is probably not, barely not going to make it onto the safe margin. Actually, no. Now that I think about it, he probably will because 10-point shift is going to be 12. So just raw based on margin shifts alone would in fact be enough to move. Then we go to the midnight poll, 11 p.m. poll closings. This is going to be all along the West Coast as well as Idaho. We have was expected to be a seat that Perez would lose. She didn't. Probably going to be a safe seat now that we look at it. Probably about a 10-point shift. And this is going to be a safe seat if we look at the 4th district. Washington's 4th, because it's not actually a close seat. It's because Washington has a system where, oh, it actually might end up being likely, where you end up having 2 Republicans running against each other. That one might even be likely, because 2 Republicans won the partisan primary. But based on that alone, it might end up being a likely seat. I actually do think those might end up both being likely. Then we look over here. Bynum probably going to be able to win by a safe margin as a Democrat at the end of the night, and probably be able to hold on in Oregon's 5th district. Then we get on to California, another redistricting state there. That's Utah. And this is 2020 to 2024. We had some rightward trends here. This is Gray's district, the 45th, basically untouched. And Tran. Where's Gray? Gray is up there. Tran is down here. I always get them mixed up. 45th district, basically untouched, is now the 41st. Or no, the 45th still. You can see that same shape. Shift at 10 points. It's going to be pretty close to 12. Probably not going to be as contested either. And there was an incumbent Republican. So it's just going to end up being a safe seat for the Democrats. Then you go down to the 47th and 49th. Those are both going to be safe seats, just again based off of trends. The 40th district, which actually is a Republican district here, 15 points is probably going to be likely. It depends on how Hispanic shifts in that region end up going. 48th district, what is that? Unassigned. Uh-oh. AB604, you need to fix that. D+2 in the 48th, that's even enough to make it safe. But then I do have some notes up here. So the 1st district, this was LaMalfa's district that he got drawn into. He passed away, and he was up here. And so, but it's going to be a safe seat nonetheless. It was going to be a safe seat. He was going to lose anyway. It was a D+11 seat. If you look at the 6th district, that's going to be 7. That's now going to be over 12. Same sort of thing going on in the 3rd district. We go down to the 13th, D+6. Same story, but this is Gray's district. He's going to probably overperform anyway. This is Valadeo's district down here in the 22nd. We'll get to that in a minute, in like 15 seconds. The 21st district instead, that's basically the same. Costa's probably going to easily win that one. I don't think this is going to end up being a safe seat because Valadeo does so well and does very, very well. And so I do think that's going to be the one likely seat for the Democrats in the entire state of California as of right now. And then we finally go down to the one toss-up seat that is left, which is California, or Alaska. I cannot talk. And that is going to end up being a conclusion with basically the midnight poll closing time, which is probably going to be a Republican victory now that we have Nick Bigich in the House there. It depends on how the primary ends up going, but it's probably going to be a likely seat just based off of partisanship for the state as a whole, which means that it will be 237 for the Democrats to 198 for the Republicans. 237 to 198. And so that means that Republicans are now going to drop below 200, which is huge. The last time that the Republicans were at 200 in 2018. The Democrats are going to outperform their 2018 performance by 2 seats. But there are a lot of tilt seats, so there's a lot of room for shifts there. The last time that either party was below 200 was in 2016, when Democrats were 194, 188 in 2014, 201 in 2012, 193 in 2010. 2008, Republicans were at 178. So this would be the worst House standing for the Republicans since 2008 showing, but only now in a blue wave year can this come true, showing again that things are changing across the country, but there is absolutely a possibility the Democrats will have no difficulty taking the House, and that New York Times needle will swing right to the left as almost the first results start coming in on election night. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Make sure to subscribe below if you're not already. Make sure to follow the Patreon. We are doing a specific event now from now until the next live stream, which is on March 3rd, where if you get any paid tier, you get upgraded to the next tier for free. So make sure to do that for the first paid member only, so you don't want to miss out on that. Thank you again, and as always, have a fantastic rest of your day.